Do you hear me?
Not in the headphones, but...
Really? You don't hear me in the headphones?
No. There we go. We have it now.
Okay, so make sure that's not too loud for you. But all right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the best radio show on Principia Internet Radio. It's called Christian Blaney's Cockpit. You can find 6 of my episodes on YouTube, although this is probably like 14. It's probably number 14. I very recently learned how to make the video files not 40 gigabytes to not export it in linear form, so we should be getting that up soon. The next episode up will be Viviane de Castro, which is really number 12, but I told her she'd be the next one. So be looking forward to that if you're interested in what we're going to talk about. So just so you guys know, this is a radio show. It's just a talk radio show. I get to bring on whoever I want. My name's Christian Blaney. I'm the host. I'm a junior at the college. And so anyone that wants to be on or will be on is coming on. So today I have Chris Strong, who's a good buddy of mine. We've gotten closer over the past semester because we have a pretty close mutual friend, Landon Reekston, who will be on the podcast in 2 weeks. We just secured that, so I'm looking forward to that one. Anyway, Chris has a background in sports broadcasting. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I've done the baseball teams here, softball teams, as well as the basketball team, so I guess you could say that. Cool.
That's awesome. So are you interested in commentary or like reporting on a written form, or what do you mean? Like, what are you interested in?
I really like doing play-by-play broadcasting, especially for baseball. Just having played it my entire childhood, I feel like I know the sport and all the terms that are needed in a broadcast. So just doing that play-by-play broadcasting alongside a color commentator like Ryan Eisenhower I had for the basketball team here at Prin, it's a really fulfilling thing, just trying to get better every game as you go on.
Here, 1 second. Audience, cover your ears. I'm going to do something really loud. All right, that should do it. That's just so I can sync up the video to, Anyway, cool. Well, I'm interested to have Chris on because he is comfortable in front of a microphone. Do you have your own radio show right now?
No, I had one last semester.
Okay.
It was called Prin Before the Polls, and that was just basically like an election broadcast.
So. Did you change it to Prin After the Polls?
I did.
Okay.
It had 2 names as the semester went on, so we kind of just rolled with it.
Yeah, my show started out as Christian Blaney's Corner, but now it's Christian Blaney's Cockpit, and so I probably got to change the logo. But I have a little triangle with a smiley face in the corner.
I like the alliteration on the name, Christian and Cockpit.
Thanks, man.
It rolls off the tongue really nicely.
My first guest, Boone Steele, recommended changing that to me because, like, I'm interested in aircraft. That's just, like, a part of my life. And, Anyway, I wanted to talk to Chris about a couple things that have been on my mind. The audience has probably heard some of these issues before, but I think I condensed them. I wrote them down. So now you don't have to listen to me ramble about the issues of society, and I actually just have condensed it to 5 main points that I'm really interested in right now. And the first one I think is particularly good to have Chris on for because it's about the Olympics, which is a sport, and the NCAA, which is it's just an athletic group. So networks make tons and tons of money, and this is
it's
not
ridiculous.
A coincidence that this was just talked about in the Joe Rogan Experience. Like, that guy is fantastic for bringing up the real issues in society. And so good job on him. Anyway, so networks are making billions of dollars off the Olympics while many athletes struggle to do what they love. And so, there's some purity in it. You know, the people in the Olympics are really doing it for the sport. But at the same time, like, they are the people supplying the entertainment, and they're getting almost no pay for it. Same thing with the NCAA. They're actually pretty much selling themselves. Like, they're selling their athletic health and their career at a potential shot at a professional level. I guess, athletic career, but
right. And the real shame of this is the Olympians and the NCAA athletes. They are putting their bodies on the line for this organization, and for them to make billions and billions of dollars. Where, I mean, even this weekend is March Madness, the Final Four, and think about how many millions of people will go and tune into that show, the ad revenue that they're going to get from ABC. And those athletes, if you tear an ACL and you're a senior and you want to get into labor, after graduating from college, you're not going to be able to do so. So it's just a tragedy that these athletes for so long have gone in D1, especially, without getting paid anything for their jersey sales or for the video games that the NCAA is coming out with.
I actually don't know about those video games. I only know about like 2K. Like, for example,
there's a really exciting NCAA college football game that a lot of people go back and play, NCAA College Football 2014. And I don't know how
that was the golden age for sport games, let me just tell you.
Absolutely.
FIFA 14,
NHL
fantastic.
14 was amazing as well.
Yeah, you're a hockey guy.
Yeah.
That's not very popular. How did I'm extremely interested in a not very popular sport either, jiu-jitsu. It's growing in popularity, but you know what I mean? And so, how do you keep that passion up for it?
It's kind of just the way that I grew up and the people that I looked up to. My granddad worked for the Dallas Stars, which is the local NHL team. And then I kind of just got free tickets to the games growing up because he worked there. So it was hard not to be passionate about the sport. And, just like you with jiu-jitsu, it's kind of getting more popular right now from the UFC, isn't it? Kind of?
Well, there's just more and more UFC fighters that are absolute killers on the ground. You know what I mean? They know how to handle themselves once they're taken down. So in the beginning of the sport, it was mostly wrestling and boxing, almost entirely. And then people like Vitor Belfort and these Brazilians came up that were trained in Brazilian jiu-jitsu from birth essentially, and they just blew through the competition. So people are like, okay, I guess I got to learn grappling.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating. The most fascinating thing about the UFC to me is how these boxers going into it have to learn an entirely different sport.
Two more skill sets.
I know. It's not like just regular boxing anymore to where you just need to train to fight the longest and the hardest. You need to actually know these techniques in order to survive in the octagon. Yeah.
Of course, there's weight classes that favor boxing more, like the heavyweight weight class. Francis Ngannou is the current champion, and he is primarily a boxer. I haven't seen him on the ground, and that's because he doesn't need to. He's 6'4", 6'5", 260 pounds of muscle.
That man had a brutal knockout
last
week.
Stipe Miocic, I feel so bad for him. Stipe is just he's a tank, and he can take so many punches. He's been the champion for a long time. He's ranked 3 or 4 overall, by weight anyway. So the fact that Stipe got knocked out by Francis Ngannou's punch, it shows how much power is that. So people that might be interested in MMA might be interested in Joe Rogan's kick, because he is fantastic form. He came up in a Taekwondo background, and so it's known to be extremely powerful, and people study the form. Anyway, Joe Rogan's kick generated just a little bit more power than Francis Ngannou's punch.
Oh my gosh.
If that shows you how hard of a puncher he is.
And how much the sport has evolved over time. Thinking about all the muscles in your leg and the fact that this man's arm can create the same force as Joe Rogan's massive thigh. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Anyway, crazy stuff. But back to Olympic, NCAA. How do we fix this issue? Where do we start?
Well, I think the NCAA is finally starting to focus on Division I athletes. Because if you look at us,
I don't need to be paid for rugby, bro.
We're Division III athletes.
Yeah.
The difference between the division.
Technically, I'm not. But
but the difference is Principia doesn't get money from people attending baseball games. They don't get money from people watching the streams. ESPN pays millions and millions of dollars for to show off the NCAA athletes. So I've heard that in the past year the NCAA is actually looking at starting with jersey sales, because it's hard to say that a person isn't buying a Clemson quarterback's jersey because of the team. They're buying it because of the individual.
Yes.
So the individual should get the money from that sale. And I think that's finally starting to happen, hopefully.
Now, what would be reasonable? What percentage should be reasonable for that sale?
I would definitely look at the major sports. I would look at the NFL, NBA, and see what their players get from the jersey revenue. It should be comparable between the two. There shouldn't be a discount just because they're a college student. They should get the same amount of revenue as for a major sport.
Sure. That's fair. I'm in full support of that. Man, what was I going to say? Go ahead. If you have any more like thoughts on this, please share.
Right. Well, for the Olympics, it's just these athletes that are training their whole lives, and some of them are coming from countries where they can't really get a great source of revenue, and it would just benefit them so much to come to Tokyo this summer and actually get a steady income, even if it's just over minimum wage. Mm-hmm. Getting an income from the people who are making millions of dollars from you, that's just a major issue that I see, in the Olympics, and I think mainly in the NCAA. They need to fix it as soon as possible.
I agree. So the thing that I had on my mind was I recently watched the video. I assume you've seen it, of Alabama when they got their football team canceled quite a few years ago. I know it's back now, but how emotional the players were, how fantastic their arguments were, how soulless the administration looked breaking that news. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen this video?
I don't know if I've seen the particular video. Yeah.
Well, what happens is the entire Alabama football team was brought into a room, and the new president of the administration of the school came in and broke them the news that they're canceling the football program. And man, the emotion in that room was crazy, and they just they destroyed that. They didn't physically attack him, obviously, but they presented so many fantastic arguments and showed this is proof you do not care for what's going on in our lives. This is I have a 3-year-old son. He travels to every single one of my games. This is his passion in his life. And if you take that away from us, it'll very easily show him how corrupt and just money hungry the world is. Because it's not like Alabama's going broke.
No, not at all.
So,
yeah, these athletes, especially Division I, this is their entire lives.
Yes.
They, outside of classes, which are 3 hours a day for them, they are training the entire day. They are in 3-hour-long practices. And another issue that I see from the NCAA is that these athletes can't make money off of social media either. They can't make money in entrepreneurship when they're an athlete. So not only are they not getting paid by the NCAA, they're not getting equal streams of revenue outside of college that the average college student could get.
Yeah. Tough, man. Another thing, I liked how you brought up how that's their entire lives, and that the sport takes away a large percent of it. Now, I'm speaking for someone else here, but I understand that Corey Carter's situation was that he may have been able to go D1 with his sprinting because he's extremely fast, and he's won multiple D3 conferences, I think they would be considered. But he decided to not go D1 because his advising counselor, who was my advising counselor, recommended not, because it's this would be your entire life. They would take away a lot of your time, social ability, a lot of that stuff in exchange for something that you just have a shot at.
Right, and that's the beautiful thing about D3.
Yes.
Is that you really can have a life outside of it. And there are athletes here at Principia that are in 3 sports at a time. The Rachel McLeod-Warwicks of the world that just like playing a million sports, and they're able to. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the reason why Division III athletes don't ask the NCAA for money. It's just kind of a hobby when you're playing in D3. It can be your passion.
It's a character building opportunity, right. I think, more than anything else. That's what it was for me.
Definitely. And you grow from it just as much as probably the D1 athletes do, but it's not your entire lives, and it doesn't have to be a living for us. We're not expecting to go play in the MLB.
No. No. We have a very strong esports team, actually, for at least the League of Legends part. I'm on the Valorant team. which is it's a different game entirely, made by the same company though, luckily. And we're all I don't know what percentage we're in, but we're maybe top 30%. While the league team, like if you look at all their ranks, it's probably closer to top like 10 or 5%. And so it's fun watching their stuff, and actually the majority of the team is my friends, my close friends. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it's not their whole life, and I think it should probably stay that way. It makes sense.
Right, and Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. Well, even in esports as well, you learn how to grind on one thing for hours and hours on end. I was watching a Twitch stream the other day, which is like a live stream website for games, and this one streamer said that if the esports community were to ever go into something like chess or like the poker community, they would end up being the best in the entire community.
Well, you saw what happened when chess blew up over the pandemic.
And they ended up being very good players.
Extremely good players.
There were grandmasters commentating on these people and being very proud of the progress they made in only a month of training for these chess matches. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting. I watched some poker streams on Twitch, and it's a smaller community, but people think if poker can become the next chess on Twitch, people could make a lot of money off of it. Esports people could make a lot of money off of it. Mm-hmm. So just the grind that esports players go through, hundreds of hours on the same game, trying to get better and better. I find it very commendable.
Yes. It's interesting, though, because it's an extremely competitive endeavor with very little physical component. The most important things you need physically are muscle memory and reaction time. But just training those two things for thousands of hours, that's what you have to do. Like the pros that are playing Valorant, since it's a new game, they're averaging probably around 1,000 hours of playtime at this point. And to see what these people can pull off when you understand the game is incredible. Now poker, I love listening to people talk about it. It's I like the language. I don't understand the game. I can play it. But it's not my forte. And even then, I might not know some of the rules. But it's so fun listening to people talk about it, because just like listening to jiu-jitsu, just like listening to esports, these people have a deep passion and understanding for what the hell's going on. And I think it's just I like to listen to other people's passions. I feel like I live in a world, or at least maybe a community. It's possible it's just the pandemic, but there's a lack of passion. And I think I've identified that as something that's been bringing me down a little bit. And so to talk to people that have these passions about these things, or even listen to people having these passions about things, makes, I think, not only my life but everyone else's life better, because people understand, like, okay, there's something in this world that I really can, like, go towards.
And I think that's my favorite thing about long-form podcasts without a specific topic to talk about. Because the longer you talk to one person at a time with no breaks, the closer you're going to get to their passions, because that's what the other person likes talking about. So 1 hour of talking on this radio show, I've already talked about hockey. So like these
it's
things,
come up. That's the thing.
It's going to come up. And that's the thing I love about Joe Rogan's podcast, and probably listening to your podcast as well. People can hear each new Principia student, their passions and what they really love to do.
And one professor.
And
I got Cameron Douglas on. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, he's I don't know if he wants his age public, but he's a young professor. He's under 30 years old, and so it was easy talking to him. He's a professor for one of my classes. He used to work at the Department of Energy in the nuclear section of it, and so he's a very intelligent guy, and he's very fun to be around, and so that was a fantastic podcast. But yeah, man, just knowing even the people in your close-knit community are incredible people. Like you used to run from what I remember, you used to run for a pretty long time a hockey like fan account, kind of like a informational Twitter account for the Dallas Stars, right?
Right, that was the Texas Rangers, which is my number 2 team that I always watch. I was 16 years old, and I was like, what can I do on these summer nights when I'm not doing anything?
It was big.
It ended up, when the team was actually good, which they are not. I could say bad words about them on this show, but I won't.
They're not listening.
Yeah, they're not listening. But when they were good, so many people were interested in the updates, and so I created TX Update, which is a Twitter account, and it got up to 10,000 followers in a season, and it's still one of my more proud moments, just being able to connect with a community like that.
That must feel fantastic. I'm on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu subreddit, and you can get so close to. That's the best thing about Jiu-Jitsu for me. You can get so close so easily to the most intense, masterful athletes out there. The best athlete in the world right now is Gordon Ryan. Can I go out on a little tangent on
Definitely.
Gordon Ryan? So Gordon Ryan is the best in jiu-jitsu right now. He's maybe I should turn this a little bit so I'm more in frame. 1 second. Okay. He's the best right now. There's no arguing that at all. He's 6'2", 220 pounds of lean tissue. And he's submitted the biggest names in no-gi, which means not the fancy Japanese clothing. This is just shorts, rash guard, and submission only. Points are less important to him. He's interested in just, can I tap this guy out? And he's dominated completely. He had a fight a couple days ago against a guy named Wagner Rocha. And I don't think it's Rocha. I don't think he's Brazilian. In Brazil, and R's are H's. And so I think it's Wagner Rocha. But anyway, he's one of the best 185-pounders out there. Gordon Ryan's a little bigger than him, but at that skill level, that shouldn't be an excuse. And I think Wagner knew that. And so he took the fight with Gordon because Gordon's having a hard time finding people to fight him because he's so good. Imagine being at that level.
That's a good problem to have.
That's a great problem to have. Anyway, so before the fight, he handed an envelope to the commentators and said, "Open this after the fight." And so he, after the fight, they opened it, and it was just a picture of a triangle. From what I remember, it was just a picture of a triangle, and then it says, "Who's next?" And he submitted Wagner Rocha with a triangle. Yeah. That's how good he is. And Wagner Rocha is one of the most elite athletes in jiu-jitsu right now. Mm-hmm. There's probably there's less than 10 people in the world that could possibly beat him. And the fact that Gordon Ryan just did it on his own terms is the most impressive thing I've heard in the past month.
I think that's how you become the best at your sport, is going after the best. You know, it's all. I think getting really good at anything is about surrounding yourselves with people who are just so much better than you, and I really respect that story. That's really interesting.
It's incredible, man. It's incredible.
Do you want to talk about some of the other issues that were bothering us about the world in the past week?
Since you are not only a sports guy but a political guy, one thing that here's a little story, a little precursor to why this is on my mind. This past break, I have a friend named Christian Tolino. Shout out Gettysburg College Swimming. My buddy Christian Tolino and I met up. We were friends from first grade. Well, we weren't that close in middle school. It's funny, but we were in school together from first grade to 8th grade, and so we still meet up. We're still close, and we got Chick-fil-A and we sat in my car and we just talked. He's an economics major. He's extremely knowledgeable about how the world works, and he has very good ideas on how it might be able to work better. And I didn't know before that conversation. It was like a 2 or 3 hour long conversation. It was exactly what I love. Mm-hmm. And I actually didn't know that there were no terms on the Senate, or there was no limit to how many times you can be in it. That's why Mitch McConnell is looking like a turtle.
There.
Yeah. And there were also, it was completely okay for companies to politically lobby Congress and Senate. And I was like, are you serious? That's okay to do? I thought that was very obviously the whole reason for corruption. He's like, it's a big part of it. And so, big problem for me. No term limits on Senate, and it is legal to lobby Senate and Congress. What do you think?
Yeah, lobbyists are one of the worst issues in American politics.
And
that
most
we have.
most influential.
Right.
Yeah.
The fact that we have a two-party system is one of my my least favorite parts about American politics.
Did you vote third party?
I did not.
Part of the problem, Chris.
I needed that man out. Okay, never mind.
I get it. That's okay. I voted third party.
Yeah.
I don't really believe in many of the things that Joe Jorgensen said, but I just wanted third party.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but with lobbyists, I'm an environmental studies major here, and a lot of the issues with environmental issues in the Congress is oil money.
Sure.
And every politician, whether Republican or Democrat, they're getting some amount of money from oil companies, ExxonMobil, all of these billion-dollar corporations, to basically just shut up about environmental issues. And on the other side of things, there are environmental lobbyists in Washington, D.C., but it's like the Nature Conservancy, which is basically it's you donate to it, and so they don't make money on their own. They're nonprofit. So they're not going to have the amount of money that ExxonMobil has. They can't be competitive. They can try, but it's not going to get very far when there's endless pockets on the other side. So I would love to see in our lifetime something happen to that. There are new politicians. Like, one of the things I did like about Beto O'Rourke, who was running for Senate a couple of years back against Ted Cruz in Texas. One of the things I liked about him is that he didn't take money from PACs. So
same with Ro Khanna.
Yeah. So, and these politicians are coming up, and they just don't want to take money from large corporations because they understand if they end up getting elected, it's going to be the people that gave them the donor money that controls them.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I respected about Beto, and I hope that we can see that more in the future for new politicians that come through.
Yeah, and also, so two people in Congress, that don't take any money from political lobbyists are Matt Gaetz, who's a conservative, and Ro Khanna, who is a liberal, or really Republican Democrat. I don't know their policies super well, but that's something big they stand on, and they're both cooperative, and people don't like them for that reason. They're cooperative with each other, and they want to get things moving, and they want to get power out of the large companies that are deeply influencing so much of at least American life. Anyway, so Matt Gaetz, right after saying he would be stepping down from Senate to have like a commentator position on Newsmax, the conservative news network, he that would be fair to say, right?
Yeah, it is,
okay.
Definitely.
Okay. He like some allegations were put towards him almost immediately, saying that he had some kind of affiliation with a 17-year-old girl, that he would fly this girl places, and he's vehemently denied any of this. And so he said there's absolutely nothing. I'm just being extorted. Someone called my dad at some point, said we need like $25 million or we're gonna. So that's what he's saying. There's an investigation going on, I believe, because I've seen both the FBI saying we are investigating it and we aren't investigating it. So I don't really know what's going on. Might have been at two different times, but so I'm wondering if it's really that he's doing some shady stuff, which I kind of believe he is. I would understand that. I just don't think it's like maybe as bad as it sounds. I'm not sure. That's not for me to decide. But I think that there might be some influence when it comes to like, okay, you're not really playing by the rules here, Matt Gaetz. We gotta tune you down a little bit.
Right. Sometimes the timing of these allegations are pretty neat, but I do think at the same time it is good for, people to come out about these stories as soon as possible, and as well as keeping in mind that he's innocent until proven guilty. And
I think that's the thing, though. There is no 17-year-old coming out.
Oh, really?
We haven't gotten any information about that. We've just gotten information that this has been happening.
Okay.
So I don't know. We'll have to see. But anyway,
I'll have to come back on the show for the next.
Please do.
Matt Gaetz saga.
We've only been talking for 30 minutes, and already I can't imagine it's 30 minutes. Like some podcasts or some radio shows I do are longer than others. Some guests need some time to warm up, and I totally understand that, and I appreciate any guest no matter what. But but people that already are comfortable in front of a microphone, it's such a treat, man.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I should say, I was talking about my show last semester. It was all at home. I literally recorded the entire thing on my MacBook. So to be here with a professional mic that you can see on the video podcast and all of the buttons in front of us, it's really just a treat to actually be in the PIR studio chatting with you right now.
Yeah. Are you interested in going into radio after college, or what are you interested in going for? What's your next move?
I was thinking about that for a bit. I was thinking about sports broadcasting specifically, and I have like a couple connections with the the Rangers broadcasters, but it's just such a hard field to get into sometimes, especially sports broadcasting.
There's so much money in it.
Right. There is a lot of money in it, but at the same time, there's only, 60 major league jobs.
Sure.
And there's actually a person that made it to the top almost immediately, Aaron Goldsmith, who went to Principia 15 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. And I chatted with him once, and he just said, if you want to get here, you're going to have to get paid nothing for 5 years.
That's my plan.
And go through the minor leagues, and you're going to go up and go up. And if you have that mindset, like, respect to you. But I feel like it is kind of just scary for me, the thought of, not really knowing the future. But at the same time, I really believe that if anyone has that goal and they stick to it and they're on that minor league team for 10 years, they're going to get the breakthrough to get to the top. So I know that you can absolutely get there.
I really hope so, man. I love talking to people. It was extremely empowering to me hearing. You were in my radio show class, right? Mm-hmm. So when people would give me these positive comments on my radio show, saying like, Christian, you sound really comfortable in front of a microphone. Like, this might be something you could do. It was like, oh wow, like this is something that I can get paid for, and I love doing it. And I think that it's just an immediate benefit for society.
Absolutely.
So
hearing as many perspectives as possible, and I've been thinking about doing a podcast potentially after graduation, trying to speak to a person from as many countries as possible.
Really interesting.
So I really want to travel after graduation. I'm thinking about law school right now to become an environmental lawyer. But
that's a good, considering you have Lee Barron so close to you, that's very good.
Yeah. But that's another 3 years of school. So I've been thinking more lately that I want to take at least a year to travel around the world if I can. So I would travel to, say, Southeast Asia and record a podcast with a person from each country in Southeast Asia, and then go to Europe, record a podcast with a person from each country in Europe. I think it would be interesting hearing as many perspectives as possible.
I would be particularly interested in a podcast with someone from Estonia,
Really?
just because of their extremely progressive laws when it comes to technology use. I think, I don't know all the details of them, but what I've read is like pretty interesting. And so that would be, I would listen to that show absolutely, just 100%. So if that comes out, text me, let me know. I'll put it in the description of this video. I'll edit the description, no problem.
For sure.
Yeah, man. Well, good stuff. I think we covered that pretty well. So it seems like we're on the same page with this.
Yeah, lobbyists, get the hell out.
Thank you. I don't know how, considering it's a tough thing though, because the people that make the laws are the people being influenced by the lobbyist. And so unless there's a strong enough populist movement, I don't think there's going to be a change. And I don't know what a strong populist movement looks like without violence as well. So I'm not sure. But if something starts like I'm going to be an activist for that. I'm not an activist for much. Like when it comes to animals, there's lines I draw. Like I'm totally okay with hunting. I'm totally okay with eating cows. I don't like factory farming. And I think that there's a lot of huge issues with it. But I am still going to eat meat because I need it to be functional in my own life.
Yeah.
I've tried, the vegetarian thing, the vegan thing. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work for me right now. And I think that's
right.
I don't think that's too controversial.
Everyone has their limits on certain things, but as long as you try it out, you shouldn't feel any guilt for eating.
And so
meat.
At the end of the day, I'm on Team Human. I believe that animals are just as conscious as us. I really do. Insects are different. I think reptiles are different. I think mammals specifically are just as conscious as us, have just as advanced thinking patterns, but I'm going to go crazy if I think about that too much. So I just got to be on Team Human for the time being.
Yeah.
That's
my main idea in politics as well, is that the individual should have just as much power as a billionaire individual. I've always felt that the laws that are just going on in Georgia right now to restrict voters, and in Texas as well.
Could you fill me in?
So they're basically just talking about what requirements are needed in order to vote in an election. So adding IDs, and for mail-in voting in the past, you haven't had to submit your ID, get it back, and then vote. So they're basically just trying to make it harder for people to vote. And I think it should be one of the most simple things you do. You should be an American citizen, but at the same time,
there's not a ton of proof for voter fraud. It's a very small factor from what I understand.
Right. The entire election season was about, on one side they're saying that all mail-in votes, shouldn't count, and then the other side is kind of like there's no evidence for widespread voter fraud. Yeah. So if there were evidence of widespread voter fraud, then I would be completely in support of making it more strict. But
I'm just not seeing any concrete evidence of that. And I've listened to many of the arguments on especially the conservative side of things, because they feel like they're being affected more than not by what they believe to be voter fraud, and I'm just not convinced. I think it's mostly a call for more checking, and once the check has been done, there's still a call for more checking, and I'm just not convinced that it's really going on.
Right, and the political movement that has gone on in Georgia in the past 4 years has made me more proud than anything else. With Stacey Abrams, who has gone around inner city Atlanta and other cities in Georgia, she's basically just been telling people they're trying to make you not vote. They're trying to make Black Americans not vote.
I was about to say that does disproportionately affect Black Americans.
Right. And they try to make it more difficult in neighborhoods that are poorer. For example, like in South Dallas, where I'm from. I'm from North Dallas, but South Dallas is generally a poorer area. There's evidence of a lot less places to vote in those areas, just because they're probably going to vote Democrat, and they're probably going to vote for issues that the most powerful people, the richest people, do not want to go through. So I love Stacey Abrams and people that try to make our country as equal as possible, because that is what our country was founded on, trying to make it a better union. And I think we should try to push for that every single day of our lives as Americans.
I'm interested in moving to Texas after college.
Really? What city?
Austin, believe it or not.
Austin. Nice.
It's a big media boom right now. I feel like I need to take advantage of the opportunity while it's in the stage that it's in. But I also know I love Texas's laws on a lot of things. I think their drug laws are very archaic, but it's okay. It's something I can look past. Not a huge part of my life. Anyway, I don't know if I feel like it's going to be harder to survive as someone without money in Texas. I know Austin has a lot more social help, considering it's a pretty liberal city in a conservative state, but even then, the social programs will be interesting. And I know I'm just like you said, I am prepared to struggle for a while.
Right.
And I mean, if you look at what I'm wearing year 2-year-old Owatonna sweatpants and this gray T-shirt from Maryland that I've had forever. And so I'm not someone that needs a lot to live. I got my Carhartt backpack, and that's my best friend. So I think I'll be okay if I just get a cat. But, I think every once in a while I'm afraid I'll run into a point where I will be down on money. And I don't know how the social services are in Texas. Could you fill me in on that maybe?
I'm not too educated on the social services, but, I'm just up the road. I'm 2 hours up the road if I live in North Texas. So
sure.
I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years, but if you're ever at that point, just let me know.
Okay, will do.
And that'll be a place for you just up the interstate. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And if you're grinding the entire time, there's nothing to be sad about. There's no shame in it.
Yeah.
Because, one of the broadcasters I talked to on the Rangers, he said, look, I did the most random sports you could ever think about. An indoor lacrosse league. I did women's basketball high school. I did handball. Like, you're going to do those sports to get there, and it's likely going to be, unpaid, or it's going to be close to minimum wage. But in life, money can provide happiness in some way. It can provide you, a nice car. But really the grind and getting to a place you really feel good about in your career is so much more than having, a steady income.
Yeah. I think it's personality type for me, but I see money as more of a means to a lack of like anxiety, for example. So I think in my life, it's less about how much money I have. I'm not as excited when I make tons of money for the reason that I can spend it or have nice things to show people. I just want to not have the stress of money. I don't want to have to worry about my taxes or where I have to live. I don't want to have to worry about what kind of food I'm eating. I don't want to have to settle for eating less healthy, which is a huge part of my life, just in order to get by. And so if I have money, that's what it's going to be going towards, just making my quality of life better. And I just don't need to show people that I have the newest Ferrari. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not my goal, and I think that should be a more common goal. And I think it's becoming a more common goal among our generation, at least. A little less materialistic in the more expensive ways. We like shoes a lot. I think we like shoes more than previous generations, but shoes at most are going to be $300, right? And there's sneakerheads out there, and I think it's more of like a phase thing than anything else.
Right. There are always going to be ways to treat yourself.
Yeah.
And every person deserves that. But so many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck every single week.
So many local businesses, and this is a huge issue because I see it in where I live. Growing up in high school, I constantly was seeing my town get bigger and bigger and poorer, and it's very, very frustrating. And so I see all these local businesses shutting down. In the middle of downtown, I'll see these gated, literally gated off stores that are in prime place, but for multiple reasons. Taxes not being for local businesses and for big businesses because, yes, why? Political lobbying. It's not like my local freaking candle store is going to be able to politically lobby with the congressmen and in my district in Maryland. There's just no way. And so I hate seeing that. And so once people start looking more to their local communities, they might get the same passion as about this that I do. And they might be interested in spending more locally. I still buy from Amazon, but I'm going to cancel my Prime membership this coming August when it renews because I can't stand what the company is anymore. I saw the Amazon driver that drops off packages for the mailroom. I work in the mailroom. I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry about what's happening. I just saw a video of a driver just letting people know the situation, and I hope you're doing all right. And I'll just support workers in any way I possibly can. I don't know if that's going to be unions. I don't know if that's going to be the abolition of right to work states, which is a ludicrous name for a bill. Maybe go more towards the PRO Act, which is also a ludicrous name for a bill, but I like the terms better. So I don't know what it means to be better, but there's very obvious things that we need to stop doing to make the average person's life a little more easy, a little less stressed and more purposeful.
Right. I mean, a lot of the politicians I like in Washington right now are saying we're in a late stage capitalist society.
Yes.
And what that brings is...
Which is different than capitalist. Yeah. Because I am very on board with capitalism, but this is crazy because we're manipulating... We're doing... Or companies, the largest companies, have specialized in a product that humans are designed to be drawn to. For whatever reason, humans are absolutely enthralled in technology for one reason or another, but it just fires up our dopamine and serotonin I don't know if I think serotonin is just production, but it fires up our dopamine receptors and it makes us less interested in the regular pleasures of the world. And it is from a chemical standpoint heroin, and it's legal for a 12-year-old to be dosing herself or himself with heroin all the time whenever they want, and I think that is wrong. I'm sorry I cut you off, but this needs to be stressed to at least my audience, however small it may be. I have no idea who's listening, but if it's even one person and they can spread it to another person, I'd be happy with that.
Right, and being in a late-stage capitalist society, it's just you're dealt an unfair hand when you're not the top 1%, because the tax breaks that these companies like Amazon get are just completely unfair, and they end up paying a much smaller amount than a person that makes $75,000 a year. So with mental health that comes from social media, you just kind of have to realize in our society right now, it's just so difficult to find everything that you need and to get past living paycheck to paycheck, because the people in the corporations are rooting against you and they're trying to make it harder and harder to make more money.
And this isn't because they intentionally hate you, it's because they love themselves,
right?
Which is a natural human inclination, and we need to be aware of that. And that's where change starts.
Yeah, I'm sure Jeff Bezos has empathy, for other people, I would hope. And he doesn't know how to help society, maybe to give away all but $1 billion of his income. And we're just in a place right now where we have those lobbyists that are controlling our government and controlling marijuana legalization, controlling environmental policy. And I know that in our lifetime, at least, I hope we live a long time, that we're going to get to a place where people are too fed up about it, and climate change is an urgent need to be fixed. Yep. And we're going to get to that place, and I'm really excited for that day. I'm excited for politicians that have a more progressive mindset, and I'm just hopeful for that day where the lowest person in the United States doesn't have to worry about going bankrupt for wanting health care.
Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps was absolutely a thing when my ancestors came into this country, not all that long ago. My grandfather is a first-generation American on my mom's side. My dad's grandmother, she moved from Germany to the U.S., so you understand that my family hasn't been in the U.S. for a long time, and there was a lot more mobility. There was a lot more financial mobility when it comes, the American dream was real. The UN has stated that, they didn't say the American dream, but essentially upward mobility of generations is not happening anymore, and people's lives are becoming purposeless, and we're going into a crisis. They said this 1 year ago.
Mm-hmm. And it's sorry about that. It's all about finding value right now in things that are not monetary, things that are not material. And
you don't need to monetize your passions.
Right.
That's something that Americans are doing all too much. They need to monetize their passions. I'm doing it because I need to. I don't see any other route for me. Mm-hmm. This is something that I love to do, but I have lots of friends that are interested in photography, and I think a lot of them are pressured into finding a way they can monetize this skill. Go ahead. I cut you off again. I'm sorry.
Well, that was a great point, because I feel like whatever you end up doing 10 hours a day, it's going to end up making you money at the end of the day. If you do podcasts every day of the week and you talk to a person for an hour, you're going to end up getting good enough to, sign that $100 million deal with Spotify like Joe Rogan got. But
it's true.
Just follow your passions, and don't let money be the reason that you like something.
No, that's very well said. I actually started this radio show. I applied to start this radio show as a practicum, which I didn't know was a thing when I originally wanted to do it, because of something Joe Rogan actually said. He's obviously a very big inspiration to me. He's not the only person I listen to, and there's some things I disagree on with him, but he's very wise in my opinion, because he's talked to so many people. And when he started his podcast, he didn't know it was going to be this big. He just thought it was going to be something he could talk with his friends with, similar to what I'm doing now, except I kind of have a direction with it. And so if you listen to the earlier Joe Rogan episodes, they're not as succinct. He's still a good talker because he's a comedian. It's part of his skill set, but it's nothing like it is now. It's a completely different format. And what he did to get to the point where he is today is he just kept on doing podcasts. Mm-hmm. If you keep on putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to end up eventually walking a mile. And each mile you do, you're eventually gonna walk 100, and you can keep on seeing these milestones of growth. And I think it's exponential as your ability in whatever this is goes. And so I was like, if I want to talk to people, if I want to promote long form conversation, if I want to understand my community better, I'm gonna have to start now.
That's a great way of putting it. And I think for any listener going into the weekend, just think about, going back to work on Monday or us going back to class on Monday. Are we doing it in order to do something that we love? Or are we doing it just to, live another day following the path that we should take, stated by the people above us, our parents, our grandparents? Just be your own person, be your individual self, follow your passions, like Blaney's doing, like I want to do after graduation with travel. So just focus on life, just away from monetary things as much as you can, and I think that's a great way of living.
Yeah, and it's okay for plans to change.
Right.
Like maybe in a year, I'm not going to have the same passion I have for long form conversation, but I hope it'll be replaced by something else. If that's the case, I hope it's not, but that's something that I feel like I recently talked to someone who is a professional or talker of people. Similar to a therapist, same function in my life. And she was like, well, something that we need to remember is that life is not, you can't plan for everything. When I was growing up, I wanted to be just a fighter pilot. That was my whole thing. I was extremely interested in aviation all growing up, and it just made sense for me to be able to do that. I felt like I had a head start on most people, but my grades weren't good enough. To be candid, I have right now 2.6 GPA, and I'm really trying to just get through college. I'm trying to stay above water, but my goal is no longer to become a fighter pilot. And just because the way things, this doesn't mean that I'm not going to get my mono engine license, because I can still take that passion and put it somewhere. I just don't need to monetize it. So as long as we live a fluid life and have many passions, then I think we'll be just a happier society. And I think that's how universal basic income can help the average person.
Absolutely.
In my personal opinion.
Yeah. Andrew Yang's running for mayor right now in New York City, and that's what he ran on, that universal basic income. And it would just make people go after their passions a lot more, I think, not having to think about money in what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree so much with what you're saying, that just go after what you're passionate about, and it will change, it will evolve. You're going to have a new passion 2 years from now than what you currently have, maybe. But
maybe
if you stick to one passion, then you're going to get pretty freaking good at it. So
no matter what, I will be better than I started a couple months ago. And as long as there's progress, it's okay. And conversation is obviously a thing that's going to be a part of my life. Hopefully more and more it's going to be part of people's lives, because people are not talking to each other. I'm almost always seeing a direct correlation with how much someone is attached to their social media as to how effective they are at communication.
I want to ask a quick question.
Please do.
And you don't have social media, don't you? You don't?
I have, let's see, I have Snapchat downloaded on my phone because my sister is a Snapchatter.
Okay.
And yeah, and so that's my reason for that. I have YouTube, which does count as a social media. I have Tinder, although there is no point in having Tinder while you're out at Prin, because the closest chick is probably 16 miles away or something. Jerseyville, yeah. But anyway, no, I don't have social media. I was listening to a 6-hour-long podcast with Duncan Trussell and Joe Rogan, where they were tripping on shrooms, drinking alcohol, and smoking marijuana.
Things we can't do on this podcast.
Things we cannot do on this podcast. However, as expected, there were a lot of very insightful ideas that I think I have found some value in, and I finished the podcast after 6 hours of listening to it across 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
I finished it when I was in the mailroom, and I took out my earpods and I just put my hands on the table and just looked like forward as if it was into the future, and I was like, I have no future. Like, social media cannot be a part of my future if I am to be ahead of the game, and if I am to be the best person I can be. I only have tops, from what I see now, 100 years left on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I get. And so I've come to terms with that. But that's that means I got to start acting. That means I can't waste time. I don't want to be at the end of my life thinking, damn, I played way too much League of Legends. That's what I look back in high school and I'm like, damn, I played way too much League of Legends. I could have been doing other things. And obviously, I didn't have as many passions as I have now, so mm-hmm. I forgive myself for that. But I don't want to have to forgive myself again for wasting large amounts of time. My biggest time waste is YouTube. So this is pertaining to social media. My biggest time waste is YouTube. However, I am being better about not just watching videos to watch videos. Like, every once in a while you get in a hole where you're just watching like 6-second YouTube videos and like they're all just like the most boosted memes you've ever seen in your life. And so I'm careful with that. And I recently bought a book, and I will be reading that before I go to bed instead of doing YouTube. So I'm very aware of it, because I see the people around me. And it makes me sad when they aren't interested in conversation as much as they are video games and social media, or if not that, but they instinctively go towards their phone instead of eye contact and a smile. So that's how I'm working.
Yeah, that's just a thing that I see in you, and you're getting closer with you a little bit this semester, is that you're so aware of these things that people just go every day just on their phone. Even me, I find myself during the pandemic especially spending more and more time on my phone. You're aware of these things, and the thing that I like about you the most, Christian, is that you just want to hear as many perspectives as possible. And even though you spend so much time on YouTube, the videos I've always seen you watching are just talks and
what have you
podcasts.
Seen me watching? What do you think?
Well, when I go in your room and I look at your YouTube, you were watching like this UFO dude, I think, and I'm just like, you want to hear 1,000 perspectives, and you want to, because I think you just gain so much from hearing other people's lives and what they're passionate about. So, you are on YouTube a lot, I guess, but using it for valuable things.
Yeah, I don't think it's always bad. The reason I didn't I got rid of YouTube initially, mm-hmm. But I was realizing that not only was it inconvenient because then I had to look things up on Chrome, and then I'll go to YouTube anyway. So it was inconvenient, but also I wasn't learning as much. YouTube is an extremely powerful educational source, and so if you're able to check yourself and make sure you are using it for mainly, you can screw off every once in a while, but like mm-hmm. For mainly educational purposes or things that broaden your perspective, it's worth it. The time is worth it.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to go into this weekend after this hour. This felt like a therapy session almost.
It does feel like a therapy session, doesn't
it? So much in social media, you're just typing a bunch of things that you're thinking about, but actually saying it out loud and getting it out of your body almost just feels so good after an hour-long conversation. So I'm going to go into this weekend thinking about what I'm passionate about and how I can, focus on that from now on.
Good to hear, man. I'm really happy to hear that. We only have so much time left on Earth, and we got to use it wisely. We got to make as much change as we can to future generations' lives, because we need to be on Team Human if we're going to make it through the next 100 years. There's going to be a really decisive point in time, and we have a large part in it because we're young and passionate and interested in the future of humanity. Hence the popularity of Elon Musk in I guess recent times. So thanks, Chris, for being on my show.
Thank you so much.
It's been one of my favorite podcasts. I'm really glad that you're able to be on, and I'll absolutely have you on again. Unfortunately, only Fridays work for you live, and I'd rather do it live than asynchronous. Although I do offer that for anyone that's interested in being on the show. But all right, well, thank you for listening, everyone, to Christian Blaney's Cockpit. This is Christian Blaney, and you just listened to Chris Strong talk with me. Find one other person in your life, in your everyday life, and either give them a hug or something else that they can receive well. So I'll catch y'all later, and have a good day. Peace, peace. Bye.